I've got a treat for you this morning. Uh, Yesterday we had a poetry writing workshop with fourth graders, and this morning they sent me back all these little poems that they had written. So I've got to share a couple of those with you. Heritage Museum. I loved writing poems. We went to different rooms. We learned haiku at the museum. Historic, calming, such a great experience, interesting, fun. That would be the 5-syllable, 7-syllable, 5-syllable haiku that they learned here yesterday. So I've got a whole envelope full of those to enjoy, but I wanted to share those with you. We had a big time. We thank you for coming today, and we thank the Union County Master Gardeners for our lunch. Thank you to the good Lord for that rain last night, and I bet we weren't the only ones out playing in it. There's a couple of upcoming events and announcement as September is upon us. First of all, please pardon our progress. We're repainting the gallery and get ready for a great exhibit. Our own Rebecca Browning, her art will open on September the 4th from 5:30 to 7. The title of it is Friendships, Nature's Poetic Cycle. It's a great exhibit. Rebecca, and I know most of you probably know her, she's this quiet person that's always helpful, and she's so artistic. She combines plants, birds, bees, and animals in this symbiotic artwork that to me really has a spiritual quality. She is such a good artist, and I hope y'all will mark that on your calendar. That exhibit will open in 2 weeks. She'll give a gallery talk at 6, and I hope you'll join us. Also, mark your calendars for the 20th anniversary celebration of the William Faulkner Literary Garden. The New Albany Garden Club joins us with this big celebration on William Faulkner's birthday. How appropriate is that? We'll celebrate the garden, we'll celebrate William, and we'll have the guest stalk gardener, Felder Rushing, here to speak at 5:30. And there will be food and drink following that out in the garden. So we hope you'll join us. He will also broadcast his weekly program from the garden. So we're happy about that. And then the next day, as if we didn't have enough to do already, the next day we have the literary luncheon. And we'll announce the winners of the William Faulkner Literary Competition. And our guest speaker is Beth Ann Finley, Poet Laureate for several years of Mississippi. And so the cost of the tickets are $20, and you can see any staff member to take care of that. Now, enough announcements. Today's program, small town living. I think Erin was a small town girl for part of her life, and she's a freelance writer and photographer. And I just love this. The One Night Stand Motel Art Show. I wish I had thought of that. That is just too daggum good. That is in Oxford. It's annual. And she came up with that and made that work. I think she's got the very best job. She's self-made. She goes and sees the most interesting things and meets interesting people and loves hiking and local art galleries and family-friendly fun. And then she writes books about that. How much better could it get? She's a member of the Society of American Travel Writers. and she now lives in Water Valley. But she's crisscrossed a lot of back roads in writing her book about small towns. And her perspective on small communities made me glad that I live in a small town. Although I've always been glad I live in New Albany. And I suspect most people here in the room are glad they've been here too. And I know that small towns worry about brain drain and the fact that our children leave and they don't come back. But I think her book has given a new perspective on that too. So um, I think that they're beginning to come back, and part of it is because of the book she wrote. And she has several books under her belt, and a new one in the spring. And we're happy you're here with us today, Erin. Please welcome Erin Austin Abbott.
Thank you so much. I'm so glad to be here. Let me do some technical work here. We'll just put that down until I get there. So thank you. I spoke at the library last year, so I want to try to do a different. I don't know if anyone was here for that. Can you down more? That's good. Okay. And so I'm going to just read a little bit from my book, and then I have a little slideshow to kind of elaborate on some of the things that this book can do for your own communities and thoughts and whatnot. So I'm just going to jump right in. I wanted to write this book for several reasons. After living in a small town for more of my life than not, I've seen many things that work in different communities, as well as many things that have fallen flat or were received differently by the long-time locals and the newcomers. Through reading this book, you will see the difference between the two, and you will grow to understand how to navigate your small town living, whether it's a new experience or you've been here all along. With so many people wanting to move to small towns these days, we're seeing a shift away from the idea that you have to be in a city to have the life that you want. I hope you will use this book as a tool for that transition. There are many ideas for events and businesses to start in your new town and for ways to offer your time, but at the core of it all, you will come to understand what it means to create a community for yourself and to add to the one that was there before you arrived. I hope you will use this book as a guide, not only for discovering places that you otherwise haven't been, but also as a tool to learn of what you could bring to your own community. Throughout these pages, you will find images of towns and people from across the country. But small town stories are not limited to just these people and places. There are over 19,000 small towns in the United States alone, under 25,000, according to the census in 2020, and there were 19,500 incorporated towns with a population under 25,000 in the United States. And each and every one has a story to tell. I just wish that I could tell them all. My son and I traveled through dozens of small towns to take pictures for small town living. We drove the back roads any chance we had, past abandoned storefronts and through lively, thriving downtowns. Yet at the forefront of every place, there was still heart and light, even in the desolate stretches when you don't see another car. Sometimes you are left to wonder, how did people find this land? You're reminded that many people before you did find it and loved the land and gained purpose and meaning in the solitude. On the drives in between towns, I had time to think about the trees that lined the roads. I wondered what it was like when these tall, towering sentinels were just seedlings. I thought about the generations of families that had been living on the land for many, many years. I thought about the indigenous families who made their home even earlier. Are we good stewards these days? How can we do better? What can we do to create more inclusive communities for everyone? It all has meaning and purpose. You see the potential and growth of a small town, and you see the heart. That is what I wanted. That is why I wanted to write this book. Crisscrossing back roads, looking for places to stop and visit, gives you time to think and time to imagine what could be. There's something magical about the blank canvas of a small town, and there's something fascinating about passing through a small town and seeing abandoned buildings, kudzu covering the windows, boards falling in, nails rusting, and thinking, is this my mark on earth? Is this what I'm leaving behind? How did we get here? And why are we so quick to leave and move on? How did these structures become so worthless while they rest in a place that at one time someone wanted to call home, a place we found so much value in, and they were so quick to walk away from? There are dozens and dozens of these abandoned spots, buildings, and towns just waiting for us to breathe new life into them. This book will share the stories of some who have started that process and give you the tools to do so as well. Think of this book as a map to navigate your small town move, understand ways to build community, and add to the one that's already rooted in place. This is your chance to learn from others what works and what doesn't when you are thinking of embracing a smaller way of living. You can use this book as a jumping off point in what to look for in a town. Apply the lists of places outlined for you of towns to consider calling home and ideas to start your own small town life. There's a little something for everyone thinking of making the move to a small town, and even those who just want to visit, which I should add, New Albany is listed in the back of places to consider for people. So now we're going to jump to Nebraska. And this, to be completely honest, it's not a place that I ever thought that I would be as excited about what's happening. Nebraska, I had been to Nebraska previously, and it didn't quite strike me. But I went to Ashland, Nebraska for the book, and it was absolutely charming. And some things that they're doing there are just really interesting for their community. And I think it's something that could be adapted to a lot of places, some of the ideas that they're embracing. Laura Kapp grew up just 10 minutes from where she now spends most of her days, at her paper goods shop, Postscript Press, which opened in 2015 in Ashland, Nebraska. Though she never imagined that she would feel pulled to move back, she's now raising her 3 daughters and her husband Josh, with her husband Josh, in the area that shaped her own upbringing. After moving to Iowa City for graduate school in English, after which she planned to be a professor, Laura quickly became enamored with the book arts at the University of Iowa's Center for the Book. While she was working on her dissertation, the couple decided to start a family, not expecting identical twins. I couldn't see how it would work to have twin babies and start a job as an assistant professor. So I reapplied for grad school through the Center for the Book's MFA program. And then when I finished that program, I decided I wanted a hybrid job where I could work with both literature and the book arts, shared Laura. Laura wasn't sure how to find this unicorn of a job, so she decided she would have to invent it. She envisioned a stationery and paper goods store with a workshop and studio space in the back, and initially thought she'd have to set up a shop in the city to generate enough traffic to make it work. I thought I would open in Omaha due to its size and foot traffic, but again, life intervened to make us pause. My husband ultimately wanted to live out in the country. I didn't want to be that far away from where my girls would be at school. I didn't want to be commuting on top of work days, and finding the kind of neighborhood I craved, historic district, pedestrian friendly, would have limited us to just a handful of very coveted and expensive neighborhoods in Omaha. Again, I'm super practical and didn't want to take on a ton of debt for an experiment business when I had never run a business before, said Laura. With the twins in tow, the couple decided to move back to the Omaha-Lincoln area and figure out their next move once they were in the region. A random off-the-highway moment would ultimately decide their next chapter. I brought my twins for a preschool visit, and I randomly decided to drive down a highway that runs parallel to the interstate and grab cookies at a little bakery I'd seen in Ashland, a small town about 10 minutes from where my parents live. When I pulled up, the neighboring building had a for sale sign in the window. I didn't think too much of it since my sights were primarily set on Omaha. But when we emerged with our cookies, I decided to peek in the window. It was charming. We were able to go inside as the space was being used for the town's newspaper office. It was a generous size and for what I imagined and looked to be in pretty darn good shape. It had exposed brick walls and old wood floors, and as I drove away, every obstacle that had stood in the way of our decision making fell away. It was 3 blocks from the elementary school. We could live in town for a bit and in the country later, and never have more than a 10-minute commute. While we hadn't planned to buy real estate, it was so affordable that it made a whole world of sense, both as an investment and as a protection should my business succeed. So we took the plunge and have now lived here for 8 years, exclaimed Laura. I worried a lot about just not really having a clue as to what I was doing. I didn't think that I would really know how to run a business effectively for a while. So there was something that appealed to me about being a little bit off the beaten path. I've just felt like the level of expectation is maybe not as great or as high in a small town as it would have been if I had been in a more popular district. In the end, I felt like it would have given me the kind of space and time to figure out what I was doing without as much pressure. Finding your family's needs. When the school bell rings at 3 o'clock, Laura doesn't engage in a typical school pickup juggle that many of us go through. Since the elementary school is just a few blocks away from Postscript Press and the Ashland Library acts as a midpoint between the two, the girls are able to walk to the shop, often stopping by the library after school to read or check out a new book on the way. We were weighing our options, and I knew that Josh wanted to live outside of Omaha, but that would have meant at least a half-hour commute on top of a work day. Financially, it would have meant if I wanted the kind of location I was envisioning, we would have had to have a lot more overhead on a monthly basis to operate the shop. And there is just instability if you don't want to purchase real estate. Not knowing if your rent is going to be increased year after year, not knowing if you're ever going to have access to the space year to year, explained Laura. Buying the space in Ashland just reduced the number of logistical complications that we can ensnare ourselves in as small business owners. And there's just no traffic to deal with living in Ashland. It's kind of easy. It's an easy lifestyle that takes a lot of stressors away that you just sometimes have when you're living in a bigger place. Generating the creative community you want to live with. In addition to the programs Laura offers to the community through Postscript Press, she also is a member of the local Chamber of Commerce, has spent some time on the Board of Humanities Nebraska, the statewide National Endowment for the Humanities program, and plans to one day join the board of her local library. She also works closely with the Economic Development Executive Director for the town's historic downtown, and Laura and her staff spearhead the planning for Hometown Christmas, the town's annual holiday program. Laura's love of book arts also informs her contributions to the town's creative community, as she creates leather-bound journals for the Young Authors Award each year at the local school. And she applies her background in literature when hosting poetry readings in her shop. Laura also plans to execute even bigger ideas over time. One of the things I'm really excited to do is to start a reading series at the new auditorium. Omaha's got a great independent bookstore called The Bookworm that's been there forever, and Lincoln has a couple of bookstores as well. I want to collaborate with these bookstores. And you know, our location is halfway between Omaha and Lincoln, pretty exactly. It's a lot on any given evening to drive from Omaha to Lincoln or to Lincoln to Omaha, but the drive half an hour is more accessible for people during the week. I think it could be a really successful and fun series. It's been nice to bring educational kinds of things to town and to try to expand the number of opportunities that are available for arts and culture. I love that dimension of life, Laura gleefully shared. She's not been shy about working to bring diversity awareness to an otherwise less than diverse community. From hosting Juneteenth events to fundraisers to participating in Black Lives Matter marches, I'm trying to be supportive space, giving kids access to books with characters who reflect the range of human experiences is really important to me, expressed Laura. Understanding how your vision fits into the town's vision. When a community grows too fast, it risks losing some of the charm and appeal that draws people to it in the first place. We've come to really love living in a small town, so I feel weary of too much growth too quickly. I feel like it can change the character of a place in a hurry if people aren't careful about it, expressed Laura. Ashland is growing, and Laura voiced concern over how her own efforts might have contributed to that. I think that a growing community is a sign of health to a degree, but I also think that there's this hard tension that's at play sometimes. People and families who've been living here for many generations. Ashland has always been a small place, and so I don't want this to feel like it's not their community anymore. I assume that since a lot of people were living here, a lot of people were here living in a small town. The broad desire would be to keep it small. But there are a lot of people who seem to think that the growth is great. It's worth having a conversation about the different directions that we can possibly take things. And I would say our downtown and our little strip of shops and restaurants and whatnot has definitely become more of a tourist attraction over time. When we get to the weekend, you see a lot of traffic from Omaha and Lincoln. That's the reality. That's not a bad thing. I think it's one of the things we have to offer, a beautiful, charming, small town experience. But at the same time, I'm just trying to be really sensitive to what it's like to live here as a resident and watch our community change. And I don't want to make a decision that will alienate that population, that native population that's been here for a long time. And I have to think growth is good, but I think it's good to take a really long view of it, going at a slow pace and not necessarily courting additional growth if it's already happening. We have those kinds of conversations in our creative district meetings. When discussing priorities, we ask, are these projects going to benefit the existing residents, or are they going to be more geared towards a tourist? That's one of the biggest struggles of living in a small town, shared Laura. And that is Ashland, Nebraska. So we're going to shift gears here, and I hope I'm doing this right. I'm not very tech savvy, but does this need to turn on over here? And I will be leaving room for questions, so be thinking about if you have any questions as we're setting this up. So, building a creative small town. I just kind of put together some different ideas that I've seen in all my travels that have been really interesting and exciting to me, that I feel like are things that, like, I live in Water Valley, not too far away, and things as I was like in Marfa, Texas, seeing like an empty field that they had turned into a free drive-in theater, but not drive-in. You just like bring your chairs, and it just is there year round. Like little ideas like that I just kind of tucked away, of ideas that I think are really interesting and could work in a lot of places. Let's see. Sorry, again, I'm not very tech savvy, so I'm just trying to, okay. How to get started. Creating a creative community can feel daunting, especially if you are new to town and haven't found your community yet. but there's so much you can do without feeling overwhelmed. So this is just kind of a list of people and places to utilize, especially if you're new to town and are interested in how to get started, how to, moving to a small town. I moved to Water Valley 20 years ago. I didn't know how to find I found a realtor. I didn't know how to find a plumber. I didn't know how to find anybody to connect with. I just kind of moved there blindly, even though I grew up in Oxford as a child. But so these are just kind of places, and I'm sure a lot of you are already utilizing these, but if you're not, this list is for you. Coffee shops, Chamber of Commerce, the Arts Council, local library, your local heritage museum, Main Street Association, the local park or park commission, tourism board, junior auxiliary, and just go in and ask local shop owners. Like, they know everything in a small town of what's going on. And don't be afraid to double dip. This one is, so here's a picture of Postscript that we just learned about, but she has a coffee shop inside. She has a workshop studio in the back where she hosts classes in addition to her stationery store. This other location that's featured is a liquor store, but also a plant store. They sell cactus and all sorts of plants. So, if the space is a big space and you think it's perfect for what you want to do, but it's too big, maybe go in with someone else and have a second business, or if you know someone that's looking for a space, maybe you're the connector that they need to put them together to create a space that could be two businesses in one, or maybe you have two ideas that you really want to do that you think could be put together. The plant store nursery, I think it's the only one in town. This is in Marfa, Texas. And I guess, they have the plant store outside and the liquor store inside. So they're utilizing space that would just be empty otherwise. So here's a list of ideas that you could bring to your small town. At a coffee shop, you could have book exchange night. You could have wine night, clothing swaps, record night, where you just bring records and y'all listen to records together. Speed creating, kind of like speed dating, but for creatives. And maybe this is a way to network. Maybe there's somebody that you're looking for, like one thing that, you need to put the puzzle together for an idea that you have, and you just haven't met that person. But something like a speed creating could be really fun. Does New Albany have an arts council? Sort of. This you could apply this to other types of councils. The Chamber of Commerce, the Art Crawl, group art shows, poetry and literary nights. Oxford does this. That's really popular, is the Iron Bartender competition. You could apply that to other types of competitions, like cookies, or any sort of competition that's really fun. Just bringing all the local restaurants together to have a winner and supporting all the local restaurant businesses. If there's something that you really are passionate about, like teach a class, like put forward a pitch to teach a class that isn't being taught in town. Start a podcast. And then Main Street and the Chamber of Commerce, movies in the park, concerts in the park, a progressive dinner with local restaurants, start a community garden, and start a garden club for Main Street beautification, which you'll already have. So, and then here's some more ideas that I feel like are really good community builders. And this would definitely apply to New Albany. Start a bicycling group if you don't already have one. Plan a neighborhood bird club, teach a yoga class, plan a micro art show. And that would be, a micro art show would be like the small libraries that you see, the little giving libraries, but small art inside of the little free library boxes. Organize a giving box. like a little library for those in need. Start a local radio station, start a supper club, and how to use your creative talents. We have a fantastic sign painter in Water Valley he basically does all the signage for town. But if that's your thing, that's an idea that you could put to work in a town like New Albany. Murals, help local businesses with content creation, take product photos, help merchandise shops, offer your interior design skills to shop owners. And if you know someone that is really good with graphic design, these are all just creative businesses that aren't utilized enough in small towns. And I do have a QR code if anybody's interested in all these ideas, that they can take a picture of it, and it will bring up all these slides. Will be there for you. A moment to do that, and then I would love to answer questions if anybody has any. Yes.
What made you choose those particular small towns to visit?
So my criteria, did everybody hear the question? What made me choose the small towns that I selected for the book? So the criteria that I had was that everyone needed to have been living in a big city and moved to a small town under 25,000. And so I really just got out a map and was like, I want to try. So often books really focus on the East Coast and the West Coast, leaving out the middle of the country. And I think, Mississippi included, we get left out of so many things. And so I really wanted to touch base a little bit on the coast, but mostly focus on the Midwest, the West, and the South. And so I just kind of went down a rabbit hole of got out the map, found people that I knew had moved from big cities to small towns, and then went down a rabbit hole of, okay, this person, I was like, I want someone in Maine, because it's the East Coast, but it wasn't talked about as much. And so I found a person in Maine that was fantastic. She was a curator at Colby College in Maine from Montreal, French Canadian. And it turns out she had moved to Ohio, to an even smaller town. But I found her through Instagram, looking at the Maine Magazine Instagram, just looking for different creatives that might have an interesting story to tell. And I found her, and she's in the book, and she's a curator at the Gunn Gallery in outside of Mount Vernon, Ohio now, which is an even smaller town than where she was that I was hoping to feature her. So really, it was just a combination of, I knew these people, and also a rabbit hole, which is really fun to go down.
How many miles did you travel?
Well, so my son and I traveled for over the course of 4 months. We were gone for 6 weeks, and then came home, and then we were gone for 3 weeks, and then came home. And then a couple of the trips I flew myself because they were just too far at that time. I don't know exactly how many miles I put on for this book, but the new book that's coming out in the spring, we were gone for 2 straight months on the road, and I put 13,000 miles on my car. So we drove all the way from here to California, up to Whidbey Island, Washington, and then across the country up to Maine, and then back down. So we did some time on the road. Any other questions?
You said you live in Water Valley. Do you feature them in your book?
I don't, because it gets a little political of if I pick one, why did I pick that one as opposed to someone else? And then I didn't want to hurt any feelings of again, small town dynamics, you know, like somebody's going to get their feelings hurt if I feature somebody. And I do talk a lot about Water Valley a lot, but I didn't specifically feature anyone. Just, I'm very, I wanted to be very diplomatic about it.
I know you mentioned Nebraska, but do you mention any other cities in Mississippi?
Yes, Clarksdale. Yeah, and in the new book, there's someone from there's a couple from Clarksdale that started the Travelers Hotel, and they've lived all over, but they had moved from New Orleans to Clarksdale. And then in the new book, I have a family from Ocean Springs. The curator of the Walter Anderson Museum is featured. Yeah, so there's definitely a lot of Mississippi love in the book, but specifically Water Valley, no.
So the foreword was written by Erin Napier.
Yes.
How are you connected to her and that whole Laurel?
So I knew Erin. I met Erin when she had a stationery. I used to have a stationery store in Oxford, in the Lyric Theater called Amelia, and it was a little handmade store. It was only 187 square feet, and I had about 200 different artists that I featured in the shop. But it was stationery, like handmade jewelry, gifts for kids, just all sorts of fun little handmade goods. And she was before her store, if you're not familiar with Erin Napier, she has Hometown on HGTV with her husband, Ben. And before she was on TV, she had a stationery business. And so we were connected, just being, at the time, there weren't a lot of letterpress letterpress stationery businesses happening in Mississippi, and I was one of the only stores selling letterpress at the time. And so it was just a natural friendship. And coincidentally, she and I have the same literary agent. And so we've stayed in touch, but I think also it helped that we have the same agent. Definitely doesn't hurt anything. But yeah, we've been friends for a long time. Yeah.
So I've seen, and you've been in Water Valley, you said, for 20 years, and over that time, over the 10 years since we've lived here again, I've really seen Water Valley develop, and what started out as kind of like an art community, I guess, sort of hippie art community, has really continued to kind of morph and do progressive things and become a really attractive little town for all of its civic engagement. I'm sorry that I missed the recent Watermelon Festival and the Watermelon Drop.
I missed it too.
But I'm just interested to know, in the 20 years that you've been there, what are some examples, taking from your list, that you were personally involved with or that you observed and that you particularly admired and were successful in Water Valley?
Yeah, so did everybody hear the question? So some things that I've seen happen. It's interesting, when I moved back to Mississippi in 2005, I moved from Memphis. I'd been living in San Francisco and then moved to Memphis and was there for a couple years. And I really wanted to move back to Mississippi. It was everywhere I looked, I compared it to Oxford and what I remembered as Oxford in the 80s when I lived there. And Oxford is definitely not like it was in the 80s anymore. So I looked a little further out and I found Water Valley, which reminded me very much of Oxford in the 80s, which is more like, real Mississippi. And I think now, because of the rapid growth in Oxford and the fact that nobody can afford to live there anymore, it's really just they're tearing everything down and just building condos that all look the same, all geared towards students. It's not geared towards people that live there and work there. So they're moving further out. So what was kind of, when I moved to Water Valley, there were 18 empty storefronts on Main Street. And now there's one for sale, and that's it. Everything is booked, filled, and, everything is, it's completely changed from when I moved there 20 years ago. Actually, there's 2 places that are available. But yeah, so it's a completely different place. And I think that has a lot to do with just people looking for affordable housing, which I think city planners, that's definitely something to consider when you're allowing things to be torn down and built and that sort of thing. Like, how is it going to affect everyone that lives here? How is it going, like what the Nebraska, like what Laura was saying, like, how is this going to appeal to everyone that has been here before? I wouldn't want to be a part of something that changed what people that grew up there. I don't recognize my hometown of Oxford anymore. I don't want to be a part of that in Water Valley. So I've been very slow with my progress, but I joined the Main Street Association. I was on the Main Street Association for 3 years, and we did things like start a farmer's market, start a concert series in a pocket park that's right on Main Street, and was part of the art crawl, the initial art crawl that has now, the Motel Art Show that you mentioned is about to have its 18th year. I think the art crawl is in its 16th year. And so, yeah, that was something that I helped do. And that was something that allowed the artists that were moving there to have their, be able to sell work right out of their homes, show that they lived there and were part of the community. And so that's continued. So that's what I've really been kind of contributed to, but it's, again, I like the slow approach just because I don't want to come in and steamroll anywhere. I want it to still feel like the place that I wanted to move to. I don't want it to just turn into something else that it's not really, so does that answer the question?
Yes.
Okay.
And well, you mentioned the concert series, but are there other projects that you saw develop and be successful that you weren't necessarily involved with, but you admire them for the success that they brought to the city?
Yeah, it's since closed, but there was a brewery in Water Valley for a while, and it was fantastic because it gave a place for traveling bands to play. It was a big enough space that it really drew a lot of people from other places. And it didn't necessarily need to be a brewery, but just that it was a place where musicians could perform was really exciting. The guy has since he sold the business, but there's been another place that's kind of taken its place called 10, which is stands for This Is Noteworthy, and they are building like a podcast studio. They have classes that they offer. They have poetry readings and literary readings and bands play and art shows, and it's just become this kind of cultural center right in the heart of Main Street, which has been really, really exciting to see happen because when you are new to a place that has 18 empty storefronts, you think this is very daunting, and how will we ever get to a place where people are doing the things that you want to participate in? And I had nothing to do with that spot, and it's happening, and I didn't have to there were other people that have since moved there that have the same vision, and so that's really, really nice.
Sounds like Water Valley is drawn on the proximity of Oxford with the university and some of the talent there and the talent that comes through there with writers or musicians and so forth.
That's correct. I've said it many times. I don't think Water Valley would be what it is without the university. Like we need the university. And we're just 20 minutes from Oxford. But I don't think it would have the same, I don't think we would have been drawn there initially. A lot of, I say we, the artists, would have been drawn there initially without the proximity to the university. Because there's so much that those artists need the university for. It's definitely a working relationship.
The Crawdad Hole still there?
It is. I know. If you're not familiar with the Crawdad Hole in Water Valley, it's fantastic. It's in an old gas station, and they now have a music venue as well attached to it. So they've kind of expanded. And it's funny because I looked at that building years ago, and it was only $15,000, and it's right on Main Street. And I'm still kicking myself that I didn't find a way to buy it, but I didn't. But at the same time, we need the Crawdad Hole, so I wouldn't have done the same thing with it.
Do you have a business downtown?
No, I did move when my son started kindergarten. I moved my shop to Water Valley from Oxford because he's now homeschooled, but he was in the school system, and I didn't want to have to pay someone to work the store for 2 hours while I run back to Oxford or back to Water Valley to pick him up. And it was just, so I moved my store and opened an art gallery, expanded to open an art gallery. And then I told myself that if I sold my next book, which was, I had written my first one at the time, the Small Town Living is my third. So I said to myself, if I sell a second book, I'm going to just go ahead and close the store and work full time. And I sold my next book and closed the store like 3 months later. So
And the art gallery?
and I closed everything so I could just work from home and not have the overhead. Even though it was great. I taught kids art classes and had the art gallery, had the shop, and it was a great space, and it was right on Main Street, but I just couldn't see myself juggling all of it anymore. Any other questions?
Tell us about your,
There you go.
tell us
Yeah.
about your upcoming.
So my next book is called Waterfront Living, and it's all about small towns near water, near rivers, lakes, oceans, and islands.
And it will be out.
It'll be out, I don't have an exact date, but in the spring of 2026.
So we were talking before program, and you had some very nice things to say about the Albany. Thank you very much.
I love it here, yes.
We like it too. But with your knowledge of New Albany, are there any kinds of projects similar to the ones you mentioned in your slideshow that we might consider, or that you think that New Albany might be right for?
Oh, I would have to do some, because every time I come here, I feel like there's new things opening. So, I don't know exactly, I would have to look and see what all's here right now. Because, I feel like as I was going through that list, I was like, New Albany has this, New Albany has this. So, off the top of my head, I would need to do a little research.
That's okay. I'm just looking for some free consulting.
Yeah.
Well, we have our version of Double Decker and the Watermelon Festival coming up the last Saturday of September, the Tallahatchie River Fest.
Oh, nice. Y'all are so smart to do it not in the hottest month like we do the Watermelon Carnival. It's the worst. I can't even go anymore. It's so hot.
So you should come
I would
for a
love
visit,
to. I would love to.
On the 27th.
The 27th. I will look and see if I'm in town, I'll come for sure.
We have the Rubber Duck Regatta, and we ought just hope that there's water in the river to float the ducks.
Oh, that's when I was working on this new book, that was part of the challenge because I tried to find places that you wouldn't think of as water towns. Like I have a town in New Mexico and a town in Arizona. And some of the places that some of the time of the year that I went there to take the pictures, the water is pretty low in some of those. So I have to give a disclaimer like, this was shot in the winter. This is late spring, early spring, that sort of thing. So.
Brain drain was mentioned earlier. I'd like to know if in your travels and your writing, you see that as a winnable battle.
Brain drain. Yes, it is a winnable battle. In what context? When was it mentioned in the book?
I heard it
I
mentioned.
mentioned-
Oh, okay.
I didn't say you mentioned it.
Yeah, I was. Wait, I didn't. In what context was it? Was it mentioned?
Well, I just personally saw your book as kind of an avenue to help stop that. People just see the value in coming home to a small town. My children have just moved back here. Who's gonna run things when we're on there?
I do think it. Okay, I needed context because I missed that part of the like when you were speaking before. But I do think it's winnable. I think that if you look around, look how many people are here, and the amount of community support that I know that that New Albany has, and a lot of these small towns that they're cultivating and really holding on to. I think that at the core of all of it, everybody that moved from these big cities to small towns were searching for community. And I think that that's a big,
I like the point you made. Not every small town is an ideal small town.
not every place is ideal, but I do think that, I think everywhere has potential, even if it's not like, if it doesn't offer what you really want, like if your interest is biking, we'll use that as an example because of the bike trail, but like it doesn't have the biking community, start a club that brings those people together just so you can find those people that are on the same wavelength and are doing something or want to do something similar that maybe they didn't know where to start it either. It's just coming together, and I think you can overcome brain drain. Anyone else? Well, thank you all so much for having me today. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
We have some of her books here, if you would like to purchase one, get her to sign it. Thank you, Erin.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate all of you and being such good listeners.